Welcome back. So we are still looking at motivation, looking at the cognitive as well as some emotional factors. This is our second part. So where we left off, we'd gone through the attribution theory, we'd looked at some sample questions. Now let's dig a little bit deeper into attributions. So attributions can affect a lot of things. The way you justify or explain the cause of your success or failure can also relate to your emotional reaction to those same successes or failures. Let's take a look at how that happens. Starting with the question, if you have an internal locus of control, so if you mean that things happen to you because of your ability or your effort, how are you going to feel if you succeed? Well, I would say if you would succeed, you might feel pretty good about yourself because you would attribute it to you. But if you have an external locus of control and you think that success comes from something outside of you, now how do you feel if you succeed? Perhaps instead you feel lucky or grateful, right? Let's look at this in a way we can put it into our notes. So again, we're going to compare the difference between when you fail and when you succeed. If you have an internal locus of control, and again, if it's internal, then we're talking about things like your ability level, your intelligence, your talents, your effort. If you fail, you tend to feel guilty or ashamed or embarrassed or bad about yourself because you feel like I failed because of me. I must not have done something right, right? But if you succeed, I mentioned you might feel good about yourself. You might feel pride. You might feel a boost of self-confidence. This made me think of some Harry Potter figures. So when it comes to Ron Weasley, I often find that whenever he fails or has a difficulty, he seems to feel pretty bad about himself. And to me, that's an indicator of an internal locus of control. Same thing with Hermione Granger. Although Hermione is more likely to succeed, and when she succeeds, you can tell that she has a sense of pride. So, another way of looking at this is your students' emotional reactions can tell you something about their attribution style. You might be able to infer it based upon their emotional reaction. All right, so now what about an external locus of control? So here the cause of your success or failure is outside of you. It's other people, it's stuff in the environment, it is fate, luck, God. Let's see. If you fail, you might be angry. You're angry because something else caused you to fail. And if you succeed, you might feel lucky. Or you might feel like, whew, wow, I can't believe that happened. I feel fortunate. Or even grateful, maybe. So let's compare these two. So when you're handing back tests, and when you have students that did well, and you see feelings of pride versus feelings of luck, that can tell you about their attribution style. And when you have students who fail and they come to you and they're upset, whether they look guilty or whether they seem to appear angry can also tell you about why they think they failed. Attributions can also affect the expectations that we have in the future for whether or not we're going to succeed or fail. Let's see how that works. So if you have a stable attribution style, now what do I mean by stable? Remember, that can include things like your talents, your abilities, your intelligence level, things like that. Things that are fairly stable over time. That means that whatever your current level of performance is, you expect to do the same in the future. So if I'm succeeding now because I think I'm smart, then I expect to succeed in the future. Or if I'm failing now because I think I don't have talent or ability, I'm probably going to be expecting to fail in the future, okay? Let's compare two characters from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So first we have Cameron. Throughout the movie, you see that Cameron has a stable, pessimistic attribution. So yes, it is a stable attribution style, but it's also quite pessimistic. He expects failure. Ferris, on the other hand, also has a stable attribution style, but is optimistic. He expects success. So this idea here, this can be either beneficial or harmful to your psychological well-being, depending on your outlook, whether it's pessimistic or optimistic. So you can see how that can play a role in your the way you view things in life, as well as your emotional outcomes. Okay, so what about an unstable attribution style? Now, if you've forgotten what exactly that is, it could include things like how much effort you put into something, whether or not you feel lucky, or the idea of fate, as well as other people in your life. If you have an unstable attribution pattern, well, you simply can't predict the future. You can't predict how you're going to do in the future because your success or failure is dependent upon things that can fluctuate or vary from day to day and week to week. So again, stable attributions, you expect the same thing to happen in the future as it is now. Unstable, you really don't know. So what else? Attributions can also affect how much effort we put into things, how hard we work, and how long we continue to keep trying. So that's effort and persistence. So here's a question for you. If you have a controllable attribution, if you feel that your fate, your success or failures is dependent upon something that you can control, how will that affect how much effort you put into things, how hard you work? Well, you can think about Tiana over there. She saw her future as being controllable because of her attribution style, so man, she was a hard worker. What about an uncontrollable one? If you feel like it's out of your control and there's nothing you can do, you probably won't do much. I feel like Jasmine didn't really try all that hard to get out of her situation that she didn't want to be in, which was being stuck in the castle. So, effort and persistence. If you have a controllable attribution, meaning you feel that you can change things, you will try harder, you will try longer. So in relation to this, we tend to put more effort into our work if we succeed and if we have a controllable attribution style. That also made me think of Hermione Granger. She works very hard. She studies all the time because of those two things. She succeeds, and she feels that her attribution style is something that's under her control. If, however, it's uncontrollable, we tend to give up more easily. Now that made me think of this clip from Finding Nemo. So you might recall from Finding Nemo that he has one fin that is much smaller than the other. And because of that, his father has doted over him and made him feel like he can't do things and tried to protect him too much. So Nemo himself feels like he can't do things and he can't control the fact that he has one fin that doesn't perhaps work as well as the other one.
Get back to my dad! Help me!
Nobody touch him. Nobody touch him.
Can you help me?
No. You get yourself in there, you can get yourself out.
Gil.
I just want to see him do it, okay? Calm down. Now, alternate wiggling your fins and your tail.
I can't. I don't have a bad fin.
Never stop me. Just think about what you need to do. Come on. Perfect.
Wow, in the ocean. Just like you, Gil.
So you can see initially, because he felt he had an uncontrollable attribution style, I have this small fin, there's nothing I can do about it. When he got stuck in the tube, he didn't even try. All right. Another character that made me think of this was also Judd Nelson's character in Breakfast Club, the idea that students might be more prone to giving up when they have a pattern of failing along with an uncontrollable attribution style. So some of your students where you see almost like a learned helplessness where they just don't even try, perhaps it's because of this. All right, let's take a look at some student differences that are rather interesting. Males and females, in general, have different attribution styles. Always keep in mind that, this doesn't mean every male is the way I'm going to describe. And not every female is going to be the way that I describe. But this is the norm, okay? Males. In general, males tend to attribute their success to stable ability. And by stable ability, I mean things like intelligence, abilities, and talents. They attribute their failures to not trying hard enough, to lack of effort. So, because of this, what tends to happen is males tend to have higher self-esteem. Now, we'd already talked about that in a previous chapter. This could be one of the factors that might explain that, because their attribution style is one that is psychologically healthy. It's one that's going to make you feel better. So if you feel like I succeeded because of a stable ability that I have, so therefore I can expect success in the future. And if I fail is due to lack of effort, well, lack of effort is unstable. I can study harder next time. All right, well, what about females? Females tend to attribute success to effort. So I succeeded because I tried hard, and I failed because of a lack of ability. I failed because I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not a good test taker. All right, now play that one out. If I attribute success to effort, then that means I succeeded because I worked hard. That is unstable. That means I can't expect success in the future. If I want to keep succeeding, I have to keep working hard. And if I fail is due to lack of ability, well, that is stable. And so that means if I fail due to lack of ability, a stable attribution, that means I expect failure in the future. So, females tend to get higher grades. We think this is one of the reasons why, because they tend to study harder because of that connection that they make between effort and success. And they're often more discouraged by failure than males are, because to them that says something about themselves internally, not just about how hard they're working. Again, those are based upon large pools of data comparing genders and may not describe all of us. Okay, our last topic is goal orientation. This still is looking at motivation, just another way of looking at it. Goal orientation is the idea that every single one of us, our motivation to achieve can be guided by different goals. I might want to achieve for different reasons than you want to achieve. Let's see. We're going to start with mastery goal, the one that is, at the pinnacle, the one that we should all be striving for. This is simply the desire to master, the desire to learn something, the desire to try to do our best, because it's something we want to know, it's something we want to attain. This made me think of Tiger Woods. If you know much about his personal story, the idea that he really had this drive to try to do the best that he could at his sport and to learn as best as he could. This also makes me think of Hermione Granger. She really works hard to excel because it seems like she truly wants to know this information and wants to be the best wizard that she can. Now, mastery goals, if that's what you have, it tends to lead to what we call a healthier view on learning. You tend to understand that effort plays a big role in what you're doing. You tend to understand that failure and mistakes are something you can simply learn from and put your effort back into it and do better even next time. So again, these individuals tend to have a pretty good view of learning, one that tends to lead to a growth mindset. But not everyone has mastery goals. Some of us have performance goals. Performance goals means that the reason we're motivated to succeed is based upon how other people view us. That we have a desire for other people to see us as competent. So the reason I am motivated to work is because I want other people to think I'm doing a good job, or I want other people to think that I'm smart or a good athlete. Now, there are two ways you can have a performance goal. I find this one interesting. You can have a performance approach goal. That means I am motivated because I want to look good in front of other people. Okay. Well, what about a performance avoidance goal? This is an individual who doesn't want to look bad. So that is their motivation. It's still under the same umbrella. They want to be seen as competent, but the way they do that is to avoid looking bad. I gotta admit, there are some times that I can relate to performance avoidance. I've always had breathing difficulties and asthma. You might notice that from when I'm talking, doing these videos. I have gone out of my way to avoid taking PE class in school. I would take it during summer school. I would sometimes have doctor's notes to get out of it because I wanted to avoid hyperventilating in PE and looking bad in front of others. So I would avoid it because of that. That was my motivation, and the way I would try to be seen as competent is by simply not doing it. Okay, so it made me think of these two characters in Modern Family. So if you compare Alex and Haley, they're quite interesting. So Alex has a performance approach goal. She constantly wants to look smart in front of her family, whereas Haley tries to constantly avoid looking dumb. So she has a performance avoidance goal. Now, those have changed a little bit as the characters have progressed, but still that fits. Well, again, performance approach, performance avoidance. What about Manny? Let's take a look at this clip on him.
We're doing a stock market project in school, and today is the last day. We all get $1,000 fake dollars to invest. And as of market close yesterday, I'm in the lead. I may not be the tallest or the most athletic, but someday I will be the richest. Which is good because the ladies love that. And I've grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle.
Do you really want girls who only want you for your money?
I like to have that option.
So I thought that was funny. When you are listening to Manny talk there, what was his goal orientation? Well, if you were thinking performance approach, you were right. That he was, wanting to excel at that because he wanted to look good in front of other people, specifically women. All right, so here are just some sample questions before we sign off and wrap up on this. So, I like math and science because I'm good at them. It feels good when the teacher thinks you're smart. So I know this font here is very small. I apologize for that, but what is that? What type of goal? If you're thinking performance approach, it's just like Manny's situation, you're right, except here it's about the teacher thinking that you're smart. When I was in 9th grade, I didn't want to be in the marching band because I thought I'd make a mistake and embarrass myself. What's the goal there? If you're thinking performance avoidance, you are correct. So the motivation is to not look bad. If the teacher teaches something I like, I'll go home and read about it. Then I'll probably tell other people about it because it's interesting. What does that sound like? Well, hopefully you're thinking mastery goal. Mastery goal is the one that is most closely connected to intrinsic motivation. All right, to wrap up goal orientation, I want to point out students can have more than one goal orientation at a time. You're not just pigeonholed into one of these. You can have all three of them, in fact. It can vary depending upon the task. So in some classes, you might be mastery goal oriented. In others, it might be performance approach. For me, PE was performance avoidance. Chemistry was performance approach. My whole thing in there was I wanted to get an A. But in other subjects like psychology, it was about mastery because I was interested in it. All right, also with goal orientation, let's look at a few teaching tips. Because we all want to try to encourage these mastery goals if we can. So first of all, really try to insist that your students understand the content rather than just memorizing. And what can you do to help them understand? Whether you focus on application-based problems, essay questions, projects, what can you do to help with that? Next, try to make sure that your students also understand that mistakes are part of learning and that learning, hi Midge, learning requires making mistakes. These things are key. They go hand in hand. If you're truly learning, you're going to make mistakes, but the key to those mistakes is to learn from them and pick yourself up and move on. And then you want to make sure you're giving regular feedback to your students on how they're doing so they can use that information to try to guide their own learning and perhaps even set goals. And finally, speaking of goals, help them with goal setting. Study after study shows that students who have goals are more motivated and tend to do better because they're striving towards something. All right, so that's it. Thank you all for your attention, and I hope that you found this interesting, and I will see you next time.